Welcome back to the weekly. I'm Josh. This is Tutorial Tuesday. It's actually Tuesday, and I don't have a video yet. It was my anniversary over the weekend. It was a long weekend to boot, so I got here and realized I didn't have a video. So frantically, I've been trying to think of something to do. I did come up with something that some people might want to know about. Blowing smoke rings. You can do this with cigarettes or vapes or anything else that causes smoke in your lungs. Um, it's it's simpler than it sounds, but it's not something that everyone can just do right away. Um, there are a few basic ways to do it, and I'll show you a few that I know of. First, I'll start with the basics. You're going to inhale smoke. You're going to make an O shape with your mouth. The better the circle, the better the ring will be. And then we'll just kind of go through the different ways to do it and what the pros and cons are. For one, the one that I do most often is bringing enough smoke into your open mouth and then using your tongue to force air out. It's very difficult to do when you've been practicing it like I have for so long in such a way that you can show it off. But essentially what I'm doing is using my tongue to push air this way. So my tongue, if this is the back of my mouth here, kind of does this motion. And when I try to do it open mouth, it's a little weird. Like that. I'm pushing air that way through a small circle in my mouth. It looks something like this. I just realized that I was doing it against a white wall, so you couldn't tell. You're not going to get a whole lot of range that way. There's a couple other things you can do. You can use the action of closing your jaw to force air out, kind of like a bellows. It would be something like this, and I'm not very good at it. And even doing that, I'm still kind of using my tongue to push air out. You'll notice that I kind of breathe out a little bit to make sure that I've got some ammunition for that. One last thing that people do is it's essentially a small cough. You get a lot more range out of that, but for me, it's more difficult to keep the rings intact over time. And that will look something like this. It's also pretty audible. It's kind of a sound. It also helps if you don't have an AC unit running and circulating air in the room. In fact, most of the time when you want to do this, you'll want to be in a place where the air is pretty still. When they have competitions and things like that, they do use a very still room, and I'm sure it's very hot when they do. Those are three simple ways, and I guarantee you'll probably be better than I am at some of them just on the first go. But it's a fun thing to do if you're vaping anyway. And if you're smoking, yeah. And that's what I got right now. The only other thing I could think of, and I might make this a twofer as long as I'm here. One last card trick. I showed this one at the very first video that I did, and I said it's a way that I've gotten several jobs over the years to make a card just disappear like this. And the way I've done it is somebody hands you a business card at the end of a job interview, which they normally do. Particularly if the interview has been kind of so-so, you want to make a lasting impression. Pro tip. So just about any time somebody hands me a business card now, I'll take and say, "Oh, thank you," and then make it go away. And I didn't just throw it off the side of the screen. It's still here. What I've done is taken the card and put it behind my hand, like so. There's a move you have to practice to get this correct. What I'm doing, I'm holding the card like so. Eventually, you're going to be holding it like you're doing a rock fist. Hold it with the two middle fingers of your hand and your thumb, using your using your pointer finger and your pinky. You're going to pull the card to a U shape with the two middle fingers in the center to push out. So pulling in with the two outer fingers like so. You can then take those two middle fingers, pull them in to make almost a fist, and you can see the move is nearly automatic. What I'm doing is then pushing the card out to the back of my hand. When I was a second cat, when I was 18 or so, I saw this trick on, I want to say it was The Prestige, and something about, even though it was a movie, it was done so deftly and so quickly that I knew it was real. It was a real trick and not a camera trick. I looked it up at that point, found out how to do it, and I spent several days doing just about nothing but that move. And you'll hear this. You'll hear this saying in a lot of magical communities. A big move hides a small move. So I can do this, and I'm pretty good at it. So it's still pretty quick. You might find that it's easier to do something like this, do the wipe away, using a bigger move like your hand going across your body to hide the small move of putting the card behind your hand. So again, much closer to the camera, this is the move slowly and in its entirety. If you're close enough, you can probably see that. That's why you don't want to keep your hand in one spot or very close to the audience. Whoops. Guys who are good at it can make mistakes. But you'll get to a point, you'll be doing this a lot and dropping it, and you'll run into this problem a lot, where you only catch it with one finger. That really doesn't hurt you a whole lot until you want to pull it back out from nowhere. And you kind of have to find your ways to get around that. I find that when I make things like pencils disappear, I don't have a lot of good ways to keep them disappeared. To ditch them is what that's called, when you take an object that has been vanished or the audience is not paying attention to, and to get rid of it. Not a whole lot of great ways to ditch this, unless you are able to do this and put it into your pocket. Now, the thing about this is if you keep your hands out like this, you really don't have to ditch it. You can keep this in your hand for a long time, and nobody's going to notice. Or you can do something that I am not very good at, which is to switch the card from a back palm to a front palm. That move is very difficult. You first do the vanish, as I showed you there. This is called a back palm, by the way. Then you have to kind of, still keeping the card from where your viewers can see it. And what I'm doing is taking the card and holding it this way. Using the same technique, really. I'm holding the card between these two fingers. Or you could, even further, do this kind of palm, which I'm not familiar with the name of, come to think of it. This is a way that I will, when playing poker, suddenly have my cards in my hands. All these different kinds of palms and vanishes and ways to hide things in plain sight from your audience. It's some really cool stuff, and if you just start getting into it, more and more techniques kind of come to you, and if you do them often enough, it just adds a little bit to your character. And that is how I have remained memorable to people in job interview scenarios that would never give me a second glance, honestly. Oh, thank you for that business card. Oh, sorry, could you give me one more? Oh, I'm sorry. I actually do have it right here. Sorry for the confusion there. I'll go ahead and make my way out. Was there anything else you wanted to ask me before I go? So anyway, that's it. That's what I've got. It's a fun sound. Hopefully next week I'll have more time set aside to record a video. This one's running a little long for what it is. But yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, please leave comments. Feel free to request tutorials. What this has become is I'm actually learning and being able to reteach as I do things. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful experience, and I'm really getting a kick out of it. So until next week, we'll see you around.